Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Pulp Crazy. I'm Jason Aiken, and I'm honored this week to be joined by two special guests, Tom and Ginger Johnson. Thanks for being on, guys. I appreciate it.
Hello, Jason. We're glad to be here. Thank you for inviting us.
Yes, thank you very much. We enjoy this.
Oh, great. I'm glad you guys could make it. From the early days of Pulp Crazy, you guys have linked to it on the Pulp Den, and I still get quite a bit of referrals from there.
Great.
So I really appreciate you guys supporting my podcast.
Always willing to help.
Oh, yeah, we enjoy it. We listen into yours at Rick and Art's and the Book Cave all the time. Great entertainment.
Oh, thank you. And yeah, I also wanted to have you guys on because you guys have been a staple in the pulp community for many years now. And I wanted to see if I could ask you guys some questions about the pulps.
Okay.
Just kind of wanted to see how you guys discovered the pulps.
Well, I guess I'll start out because I got Ginger into it early on too.
Okay.
Back in 1950s, I guess, I was reading science fiction, pulp science fiction stories, although I didn't know they were from the pulp magazine. I was reading the paperback reprints and digest magazines with, the science fiction pulp stories in them. And during the early 1950s, that was my main reading back then until, I guess until Mickey Spillane came along. Then I switched over to hardball private detective. But it wasn't until 1963 when I was sent over to France that I discovered Tarzan and Conan, and I got interested in those. And while TDY to Turkey, I met a young man saw me reading Burroughs, and he told me, "That's Pulp." And I gave him a weird look, and I said, "What is Pulp?" And this was in 63, 64. But he told me what it was. It was Pulp magazines, and Tarzan appeared in the Pulp magazines. And then he went and told me, said, "By the way, I just came from Stars and Stripes bookstore, and I saw a Shadow paperback, and it was Return of the Shadow." And he asked me if I knew anything about the Shadow, and I said, "Well, I listened to the radio program." He said, "Well, it's a little bit different, but it's same type character."
Same character.
But anyway, I went to Stars and Stripes, and I bought Return of the Shadow, and I was hooked. The Shadow just made me a pulp believer from that time on. And when I returned to France, I found Doc Savage. I was looking for Burroughs, and I found, what was titled, The Thousand-Headed Man, which was one of the early Doc Savage paperback reprints. And I bought that, and that turned me on to Doc Savage. And I wrote to Ginger in the States, and I told her, "Look, we can't get books over here very easily, and there's not a very good selection, and I just can't find very many Edgar Rice Burroughs and Robert E. Howard and the Shadow and Doc Savage over here. So I asked her to look around back here in Texas, see if she couldn't find some of these for me, and she did. I'll let her talk for a minute. She can tell you what she did.
Okay.
When he told me this, I got to going over to Kmart actually, and in Wichita Falls. It's about 54 miles from here, and it was close to the Air Force Base, and I would go over there anyway. So I would go over to Kmart, and I found a couple of Tarzan books, and I got to looking in the back of it, and found an address where I could order them through the mail. Being around here, we didn't drive that much to go to Wichita Falls unless we had to. So I started ordering through the mail. And I also ordered the Morris books of Burroughs. And I read them all before I sent them to Tom. And when Tom returned from France, I was hooked. And that was back in about 64. And another time I went to a store there in Wichita Falls, and I found a series of books that had Tarzan in the title, but these were not by Edgar Rice Burroughs. Oh. But they were by a writer by the name of Barton Werper. I had no idea who this writer was, but I bought all 5 issues of them, and I sent them to Tom in France. He wrote back and said that he enjoyed them very much, but he was, unfortunately, he was reading some of them, and he actually threw one of them across the room. He was laughing so hard. Oh. Because in it, he said Tantor the elephant had killed a lion, and he asked Tarzan if he could give the cry of the bull ape. The great ape. And I think that he finally read them all just because they had Tarzan in the title, but they were outlaw issues of Tarzan.
Yeah, I've still got those, by the way, and I still have that the Shadow and that Doc Savage that I picked up in France. Oh, I've still got those same paperbacks. Cool. They're part of my collection. But, you know, then around 1966 or 67, after I returned to the States, I was stationed at Fort Walters in Mineral Wells, Texas. And I was at a used bookstore, and I found a Phantom Detective paperback. And I didn't know this was a pulp either, but I picked it up and I bought it. I read it too. And then I think the next time came when I was on R&R from Vietnam. 1970, Ginger and I met in Hawaii for R&R. I had a week's leave from Vietnam where I had to go back. Anyway, I found 2 paperbacks, Berkeley, featuring the Spider. So by 1970, I was pretty well hooked on pulp stories, especially the pulp heroes. And then in about July of 1970, we came back to the States, and I met a young man that had subscribed to a fanzine called Bronze Shadows, and I never knew what a fanzine was. And Ginger and I looked at Bronze Shadows, and we were just fascinated.
We read it cover to cover.
Yeah, here was a little amateur magazine where collectors and readers wrote little
research pieces.
Yeah, little research information or essays on what they were reading. And there was articles on the Operator 5 and Adventure Magazine and Doc Savage. And I mean, we were just fascinated no end. And and we rushed to Sears, I believe, and bought a
Photocopier.
inexpensive photo.
A little bitty thing about the size of a flatbed scanner.
Yeah, and took it home, and we copied those issues of Bronze Shadows. And you know, those early copiers were not very good.
Burnt the paper.
Burnt the pages. But anyway, Bronze Shadows is what really introduced us to fandom at that time. And ever since then, we have been involved in pulp fandom.
Very cool. And I even saw some pictures of you guys at the early pulp conventions. One was PulpCon.
Yes, in PulpCon.
Is that how? Did you find out? Did you guys find out about that through the fanzines?
Yes. The fanzines were advertising pulps for sale and all kinds of information on what's happening in the pulp world. And we heard about the pulp convention. And well, we had been hearing about it for a couple of years, but in 1977, I believe, was my first year. And I went without Ginger. She stayed home, and I met Walter Gibson, Norm Saunders, and Harry Steger, and oh my goodness, Lee Brackett, just so many great people, and I just couldn't believe it. I was just so enthralled with these people. And talking with Walter Gibson, I think he was about 80 years old at that time, and his memory was just fantastic. You could ask him something about one of the stories from that period, and he could snap it out just like that. He remembered everything he wrote, I believe. And of course, Harry Steger, he enjoyed talking to us about popular publications that he published. And Norman Saunders was also just fascinated about all this interest in his artwork.
They had no knowledge that the interest was out there, that the fandom was there.
They couldn't believe that we were so interested in him and in his art.
After so many years.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, it was. Just to meet all these guys back then. And of course, I got to meet all of the people I've been corresponding with. Nick Carr. I believe Will Murray was there at that time too. I believe that's where I met him.
Bob Sampson. Earl Koosman.
Yeah.
Jack Devaney. The names go on and on.
Oh, yeah.
Rusty Haviland.
Yeah, there were Fred Cook, who published Bronze Shadows. I got to meet him for the first time. So yeah, it was fascinating. And then Ginger went with me in 1982, and I'll let her talk to you about that.
Okay.
That was a culture change. I walked into this hotel there in Dayton, Ohio, and all these guys come at me. Wanting hugs, just grabbing hold of me. They all knew me from writing Tom and from knowing him. They all knew who I was, and I was one of the only wives there. And every one of them, Nick Carr, Bob Sampson, Jack Devaney, well, his wife was there. Earl Koosman.
Yeah.
Don Hutchison. Will Murray, Anthony Tolan. The names go on and on. Albert Tonic, Fred Cook,
Yeah.
Rusty Havlin. I can't remember
Oh,
all
I
the names.
can't.
But these people were just...
They were wonderful.
They were well, Albert Tarnick, before we left that weekend, he come up to me and gave me a copy of a Norman Rockwell that I had admired at his table, and he just gave it to me.
Oh, wow.
And we just had a ball. Not to mention Tom got a pass thrown at him from a lady upstairs.
Oh.
I went upstairs for some reason. There was a hooker on the floor where we were. And she made a pass at me, and I said, "Oh no, thank you." I went back down. I told everybody. Everybody was in the auction room, and I went back in. I told everybody what happened. This one guy, I forget his name, but he said, "You're the only one here with your wife, and you're the one this property is."
But we had a marvelous weekend. It was Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and Sunday morning. And it was just great.
I told, what's his name? John Jakes. I told John Jakes about it. John Jakes is from that area, I believe, when he was born. He is from the Ohio area, I believe. Anyway, he just got so excited. He said, "I got friends still living in that area. I'm going to tell them about that hotel."
But we did. We just had a ball. And as far as fandom getting us involved, we started subscribing to all these other fanzines. Howard Collector, Herb Dome, which Kaz does a great job on it. Xenophile, the Pulp era, just on and on. And we decided most of those were in hiatus or had stopped. So we decided it was time for us to do one. This was in early '82, and we had it done there at the convention.
Had 2 issues.
And had 2 issues. We had several of each issue, and we sold out by the time we left. Had orders in our pocket, going home.
And this was for Echoes?
Yes, for Echoes. And we had started this, and, before we got there, we printed up 2 issues and had them with us when we went there, and just, like I say, it went like wildfire. And it just took off like anything, and just when we got home, we had all these orders to mail out for subscriptions.
Wow.
Bob Weinberg took copies for resale for dealership, and then we also picked up a dealer in England.
Yeah, they were selling them over there.
They were selling them in England. So we had a subscription rate of 250 subscribers.
Almost immediately.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then we had the dealers, Robert Weinberg and the one in England. And also there were a couple of more small bookstores that were carrying Echoes, and we would send them 5 or 10 copies each, and they would sell in their town.
And it went all the way from Texas to Australia to France to Germany to Canada. We had a lot of subscribers in Canada.
South Africa.
South Africa. Just all over the place. All over the world.
Yeah.
And I had no knowledge of how everybody got to know about it.
Well, in fandom.
Yeah.
They heard about it in fandom.
And there is no better people in this world than pulp collectors, pulp collectors, pulp fans.
I'm sure you've seen that at Windy City and Pulp Fest. When you go there, how friendly everybody is.
Oh, yeah. I went to my first Pulp Fest in 2010 or 2011, and it was a real eye opener about how nice everybody is and how open everybody is to share information, answer questions. It's just a really, really great community.
Well, back at this time, during this time, pulps, the original pulps were still very, very cheap. What was it, $2?
Yeah.
Get some for $2, $6.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
He was ordering shadows for $6 each. And they were still very cheap. Now you can't find them, let alone, find one that you can afford.
Yeah, and they're getting older and falling apart now. But back then, they were still in pretty good condition.
Yeah, the thing with that pulp paper, I guess, is as time goes on, they'll literally start to disappear since the pages are just getting brittle.
It starts flaking and you're afraid to open them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some of the oldest ones I just have ones from the late 40s, early 50s, and those aren't even some of the older ones. Yeah, and even those are starting to...
Tommy has a complete collection in one form or another of the Shadow, the Spider,
the Doc Savage, all of
Secret Agent X, Operator 5, Dusty Airs,
yeah,
G8.
Yeah.
Wow.
The list goes on and on.
Well, everything but some of the aviation and Western heroes. I don't have quite all of GA, but I'm working on it.
But there wasn't a whole lot of knowledge about the pulps back then, and there was collectors and dealers they started doing research on these pulps, and they would write an article or a short essay, or sometimes it was page after page after page.
Yeah, a lot of this took place in the fanzines.
Yeah,
the fanzines were kind of like the internet almost.
Yeah.
Now, I guess with the letter columns and everything like that, that was pretty much was that the closest thing you could get besides going to a convention?
Yes.
And interacting with different fans.
But we wrote to people all over the world too.
Oh yeah.
There wasn't the internet. We had to postage. we almost went broke buying stamps. Writing letters to people.
Wow.
But it was fun. Believe me, we enjoyed writing and just waiting for the mail to be delivered every day.
If they didn't stop, he had fits.
Yeah, well, the mailman usually had an armful of mail for us, and he didn't like it one bit. But Bill Tom's coming attractions.
Oh yeah.
He ran an article.
Yeah, we ran his coming attractions in Echoes for a long time until it went to the internet.
Oh, okay. That's where coming attractions got its start in Echoes.
Well, I think it was going on before we started.
It may have been.
But he ran his weekly or monthly article in Echoes.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
So it kept him up with everything, and the people too. If they took Echoes, they saw his ad. And since it was an article or a column, we didn't charge him as far as it being an ad is concerned.
Well, it was coming attraction.
Yeah, he made money off of it, and it took up space in our magazine. And we were glad
he didn't make money off of it. It's an information.
Well, yeah, I know it, but he sold things out of it. Anyway, but there were several writers that would contribute, like Will Murray, Bob Sampson, or Robert Sampson, Nick Carr. Tom contributed some articles.
Oh well, all of the researchers were sending us articles.
Yeah.
We might be getting off your schedule.
Oh, and no, that's fine. Go, yeah, just I'll roll with it. Definitely want to hear about all this stuff. I definitely think the listeners would too.
But when he got me into it, by the time '82 was over and the convention in Dayton, I was definitely hooked. I enjoyed meeting all of the people up there, and then in '91, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That you went back and we won the Lamont Award, and that was an honor. It was for Echoes.
Wow.
And after that, we started giving the Echoes Awards, and I can't remember all the people that were involved or all of the things that happened, all the articles. It's impossible to remember. We had 100 issues of Echoes that were articles and article based. After 100 issues, we went to just a newsletter. But before that, we had articles. We had we'd get all these. And when we started our fiction magazines, that was that much more that we were doing. Instead of doing housework at home and doing the dishes and cooking, I was typing, and more typing.
Both of us were.
And we had manual typewriters at first. And these were Hunt and Peck. Two fingers on each hand. And using the thumb for the spacer. And it would take us all day to type. And, then Tommy got messed up and he really did me a good job. He got sick and went in the hospital. This was in 97.
70, or 90, 95 or 97?
97. And he had just run a major ad in a major newspaper or
a magazine,
and wanting more stories, or wanting the fiction stories. And he went in hospital, and I couldn't go visit him, but the mailman sure visited me.
Oh.
I got stories on top of stories on top of stories.
From all over the world.
And I couldn't read them and type them all up and approve them and answer their letters. And I was just swamped. And I took him some of the stories to the hospital.
When the weather cleared and she could get over to the hospital, I was, about 50, 55 miles away.
Oh, wow.
And she finally got over there to the hospital, and she brought an arm full of stories that she had received and dumped them on my bed. She said, read them.
Start reading.
He didn't tell me he had run this ad.
Oh.
So I got all these stories again. Where are they coming from? I had no knowledge of half of these people. But we had to read the story, we had to approve or reject it, and then most of the time we had to type them up into our format on a manual typewriter at first, with all the typos and all that. And then we had to cut and paste them into a page layout, and Tom would make masters of them and print up the pages needed. And then we just collated the pages, into form a book, folded them, stapled them, stuffed them into envelopes, and made envelope address labels, and mailed them out.
Now
the post office hated to see us coming in the door.
Yes. Some of the people behind the window would actually walk off, go and hide, and the others that got stuck with us, they would be bad. But it was a fun time though. We had a lot of good times during that period. But as Ginger was saying, we started out with a manual typewriter.
Yes.
And it's hard to correct your typos on the manual typewriter. And especially when you don't have much time, you gotta get these stories typed out, and they gotta be in format.
And for some reason, nobody understood us telling them that it had to be a certain amount of inches wide, and a certain amount of inches,
Yeah,
long.
well,
And they would continue to send them double space and triple space sometimes, and we had to retype them.
yeah.
In '97, when he went into hospital, when I picked him up from the hospital, I told him I was going to buy a computer.
And neither one of us knew anything about a computer.
No, didn't have the slightest idea even to turn it on or turn it off.
Yeah, Ginger hired a tutor to help her learn. And then she taught me some of it. I'm still learning, by the way.
Me too.
Cool.
It was the money it was worth the money we spent on it.
Yeah, as I was saying, we started out with the manual, then we went to an electric typewriter, and then we got the word processor. But
that took a floppy disk.
Yeah, but
that had to be in DOS.
But even then, it wasn't perfect because I would sit there all day typing these stories out, and I would forget to save. And the next day, I would have to type everything all over again. So
he wouldn't save it. He wouldn't save his document.
Yeah,
and it would just go away when he clicked it off. There was no way you could get it back.
Because back then in the early days of the word processors, it didn't say like, would you like to save before exiting?
It did.
And there was no auto saves back then either. Yeah, so.
And finally, we went to a computer, and like he said, I hired a tutor here locally, and she came over twice. And I went back to the store where I bought the computer and told them they had told me that they would give me 2 hours of training.
Mm-hmm.
And I went back to them, and what they did is they turned the computer on, and then they said, play with it. And they went and flirted with Tommy. And they were on the other side of the store, and here I'm sitting, and I'd get flour up on the computer, and I'd make it larger. I learned how to do that on my own. But writing a letter, or putting a story up, or putting a picture with it, no knowledge of it. No knowledge of it.
But she wasn't afraid of the computer, and so she learned it pretty fast. On the other hand, I'm afraid of the thing. So I'm still learning.
He still has trouble with it.
Yeah.
Well, you guys mentioned you started publishing fiction. Did you guys have different magazine titles for that? Were they all under one?
Yeah.
Okay.
We had maybe 8 different titles.
We had 2 science fiction titles.
Weird Stories.
No, well, we had Weird Stories, Startling Science Stories, and Alien Worlds, and Exciting UFO Stories,
Detective Mystery Stories,
Classic Pulp Fiction Stories,
and Double Danger
Tales. So we had quite a few fiction magazines, and we also published reprints. We had two magazines for reprints. One was Behind the Mask, and the other one was Action Adventure Stories. And we published a lot of Phantom Detective,
reprinting of the originals.
The originals, yes.
But in the fiction stories, we needed a lot of stories to fill those pages
and
up.
We got them.
And we got them.
Cool.
We had 40 pages of fiction.
No, we had 80 pages. 80 or 90
Yeah,
pages.
well, yeah, I'm not talking about the cover. 40 pages front and back.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, we had stories coming out our ears, but we needed them.
Yeah.
You know, we found niches for each one of them.
Yeah.
And we printed. We started those in '97, I believe, for the most part. We went to 2004.
Okay. You guys started them. Well, you were essentially publishing New Pulp, but it was before New Pulp had a name.
Yeah.
We were doing Echoes at the same time, so we had our little fingers moving.
Wow, I bet.
But this is how we met so many people in this world. By the time he retired from the military and we settled down to Seymour, we were in our 40s.
The time we got back to Seymour, I was 43 and you were 38.
And we didn't want to work outside the house, so we started this as a profession, and they supported us.
Yeah, Echoes did.
Echoes supported even fiction magazines at times.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
But,
and it sounds like you guys kind of hit for your fiction magazines all the major pulp genres, like the weird fiction, science fiction, the detective stories, and
we had hit every. If it didn't fit in any of the rest of them, like a Western story, we'd get a Western story in. Didn't fit in the weird stories, or it didn't fit in the mystery, we'd put it in the classic pulp fiction.
Yeah.
That was an all genre.
Yeah.
You know. So it would take everything.
And we had a few professional writers like James Reesner, Will Murray, my cousin Clayton Matthews
and his wife
Patricia. They contributed to our magazine.
Not to mention Bob Sampson. He had some books out, and Nick Carr had some pulp books out, and there was so many writers. Some of them were original. Did it as a living. Some of them didn't.
Yeah. Well, a lot. A lot of the fiction writers got their start in our Fading Shadows magazines. We still get a letter every so often from someone that we first published, and they'll thank us even today after all these years for giving them their start in the writing field. And it just tickles us to death to get a letter from someone we published.
Oh, I bet.
Especially after all these years.
Yeah.
John French, he was a contributor to a lot of the stories.
Yeah.
And Aaron B. Larson and
Gail Maccabee. Mike Black, who wrote Doc Atlas. Yeah.
And he's got a mystery series out now. They're just John Jakes wrote for us.
Well, he sent me a story. He subscribed. He sent me a story, a pulp story that he wrote that I don't think has ever been published. Is kind of like The Spider. But he was a big fan of the pulps, especially The Spider and The Shadow.
Cool. And you guys published Echoes, these fiction magazines. These were all under your Fading Shadows.
Yes.
Was that your publishing company's name?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, that started out as the title to a bookstore that Tommy had, but he carried it over into the publishing.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's a great name.
Yeah.
As far as pulps go, I wanted to kind of pick your brains and see who some of your favorite pulp characters were.
Well, mine originally were the Shadow and Doc Savage. They were my main preferences. Of course, I've read all of them, and I've read all of the Pulp stories now. But the Shadow and Doc Savage remain my top favorites. I enjoyed the others. The Phantom Detective, I was a big fan of him, and Secret Agent X, and I liked Dan Fowler and G-Man. Some of the secondary characters, like the Masked Detective, I enjoyed him, and the Purple Scar, and Candid Camera Kid. There was just so many of these stories that didn't have their own magazines. Characters that didn't have their own magazines. There were a lot of fun, just as interesting as some of the others, like Phantom Detective and Doc Savage.
And I guess mine has always been the Shadow and Doc Savage.
And Burroughs.
And Burroughs. I can't forget Burroughs. He was a genius in his own right.
Yeah. I think without Edgar Rice Burroughs, I don't think we would have been into Pulps probably. Because Burroughs really got us. We just flat loved Edgar Rice Burroughs' stories.
Not to mention, some of Tom's writing itself is based or influenced by Burroughs.
Yeah.
Writing. So we're big fans of his, and everything he wrote. And it didn't matter whether it was Tarzan or somebody that lived inside the earth,
or Western,
or a Moon Man, or whatever. Burroughs he could not be beat, and even today he can't be beat, in my opinion.
And I liked Robert E. Howard, of course, but I kind of liked his boxing and his Western stories a little bit more than I did his Conan stories. But his Conan were also good. But his Westerns and what I say?
Oh, boxing.
Go ahead.
The boxing stories.
Oh, the boxing.
I've heard that. I've heard the same, that his boxing stories. I guess he wrote more boxing stories than anything else, and I've read a few of them, and they are pretty good. I really enjoying them. I've read a couple of the Sailor Steve Costigan ones.
Yeah.
I never could get into Howard's writings, but now we attended Robert E. Howard Days down in Cross Plains.
Quite a few
years. And he's got quite a fan base down there that goes there every year.
Yeah, it seems like
he was raised.
Yeah, it seems like him and H.P. Lovecraft, as far as like the original pulp authors go, both of them to this day really maintain a large fan base. Just from what I've seen on the internet and everything.
Yeah. Well, they're still readable today. I mean, they were writing, back in the 30s, but their stuff is still good today. You can read it today and enjoy it.
Yeah. As far as Robert E. Howard, the gathering that meets down there in Cross Plains every year, meets around his birthday, and his house is still there, his original house, and they meet there at his house. They've built a little pavilion out to the side, and we started going down there before they even owned the building.
No, before they had the pavilion.
They didn't have the property.
No.
They just had the house, and it's the gathering is great. They've had people from as far away as France.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like even before I discovered the pulps, I had heard of Lovecraft, Howard, and Burroughs, and it's just, I think there's just a lot of people out there now that know Conan, they know Cthulhu,
Yeah.
Tarzan, and John Carter, but a lot of people don't realize that all of these characters were published in the early days in these pulp mags. Yeah.
Yeah. Tarzan, John Carter, what, 100 years old now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the writers in those magazines were, they got paid by the word. And like Gibson, he'd put out 2 stories a month. And they were lengthy stories, and he had words coming out his ears.
Oh, he was a magician with words. And Walter Gibson was such a treat to be with there. Like I say, he was a magician, and even at 80 years old, you could not catch his tricks. I mean, he could pull his tricks on you. His hands were just so good. You'll never see it.
And yet we got shakes and arthritis.
Yeah. The Walter Gibson, he was just, I don't know, he was just a great person.
Yeah, that's one of the few series I really haven't got a chance to read. I mean, I've read a couple of the Avenger books. I read one Doc Savage book. And I definitely want to try to read at least the first Shadow book.
Yes, read those first 10, I think. I believe the first 10 Shadows were probably the best of the whole series. But I enjoyed the whole series. Even the other authors that wrote the Shadow, I enjoyed them all. Now, I'd give them all a 5, not a 3 or a 4 like some people.
Cool.
I had to get that in. But I did. I loved reading The Shadow. It was great. It was really great.
When he first started collecting all these books, we were in the military. He was in the military. And he would work out in the field for 3 nights and be home for 6. And he would get home for his 6-day break, and he would go in his den
and read. Back then, I could read 2 Doc Savage a day or 2 Shadows a day.
And did.
But today I have eyesight trouble, so I can't read as much as I used to.
It's fascinating, just from my limited experience in pulp fandom. I found that there's quite a few people that were in the military that are into the pulps. I don't know if that's something that you guys have experienced too in the past. I mean, there's a lot of people that aren't, but there is quite a bit that.
When I was in, I didn't know too awfully many that were, but now I'm finding quite a few people that were in the military and knew about pulps and got into the pulps.
Nick Carr, William Carr, was one of our biggest influences in the pulps.
And he retired Army.
And his wife was also a retired Army
nurse.
They were both nurses, and they came to visit with us many times, both in North Dakota and in Texas, and we've known them for quite a while. Ever since
Nick is
the 70s.
Great person.
Yes, and he's still going strong.
Yeah, in his 90s now.
Oh yeah, I really enjoyed the panel he was on at this past year's Pulp Fest.
We listened to it on your Pulp Crazy. Yeah, I'm glad you got that. That was great.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun listening to him telling stories about sneaking his pulps in his violin case.
Yeah, Don Hutchins made fun of his violin case.
Well, you know, the Spider played violin.
Played violin, yeah.
Oh, so that was appropriate.
Yeah, I enjoyed that.
But Nick has been a big influence on both of us for many, many, many years.
Yeah.
Plus a very, very good friend.
Yeah.
We've corresponded with him since sometime in the
73. He had articles in Bronze Shadows. That's where we first heard of Nick Carr. And I read his articles in Bronze Shadows and, oh, this is neat.
And it was written as Nick Carr.
Nick Carr.
Yeah.
So, excuse me, so we got transferred to North Dakota in 73. And when we arrived, we had a letter from Wuda N. Carr. I couldn't figure out who is Wuda N. Carr. And I opened it and I saw the signature Nick Carr and I knew right away who that was.
That is when we could read his writing.
Oh yeah, yeah. He must have wrote the prescriptions when he was in the army. His writing is kind of like reading a prescription.
So we've enjoyed him very
much.
Oh
yeah, he's been a wonderful friend.
Yeah, it seemed like from his talk he really liked the Spider growing up.
Yeah, he liked Operator 5,
and G8 and the Spider. Yeah, those were his three favorite, I think. He wrote 3 books. He wrote a book on Operator 5 and G8.
Yeah,
cool.
He wrote articles on the Spider, but he never wrote a book on the Spider. He did write the Pulp Heroes. It's little essays on the Pulp characters. So he has a lot of books out.
Cool. Yeah, the Spider, from what I hear, he's a pretty crazy character.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I got the full series, and I tried to read them in order, one after the other, and you can't do that.
I had to do that.
You can't do that. You gotta take a break and read something in between. The Spider will just drive you up a wall after a while. All that violence.
It's so intense. It's so intense.
I mean,
that you sit there and you're just shaking when you're reading it.
Yeah, New York is destroyed in each novel.
Every novel.
And millions of people killed. So.
Yeah, a lot of people say that if all of Pulp takes place in like a shared fictional universe, you'd probably have to find a way to reconcile the Spider, otherwise there wouldn't be a New York left.
You'd have to have an island all alone.
Yeah.
But now, the artists involved, I may be jumping the gun here, but the artists in the Pulps were fantastic too. They would do covers for the Pulps every time they come out, and they usually didn't match the stories, but the character was there.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they matched the stories too, but they just had to put the art out.
Oh yeah,
and the art was fantastic. It's much better than what's on paperbacks today.
Oh, there's pretty good paperback
yeah,
covers.
But they're still not as good.
Jim Steranko did some fantastic paperback covers for The Shadow.
But Norman Saunders, Frank Paul,
George Rosen,
Walter Baumhofer was great.
Yeah.
Grace Gladney was great.
Yeah.
Now it's later artists, Mike Kaluta and Jim Steranko.
Yeah.
They're good too.
Yeah, they're good. I like Mike Kaluta's Shadow and Jim Steranko's Shadow. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really like some of the Weird Tales covers.
Yeah, there's some weird tale covers, aren't there?
Oh yeah,
There's some good ones now. There's some good covers, but there's some really weird ones too.
Yeah, the Margaret Brundage covers. I really like her covers.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind having some of her paintings. They were so good.
And we talked before about publishers, and right now, Altus Press with Matt Morin is doing, and Anthony Tolan are doing the reprints that are just beautiful.
Yeah.
And the covers are great on those.
And John Dennison's doing a
John
good job
Dennison's doing a good job too. You know, they're coming out with these facsimiles that are what, $10, $15, whatever.
Yeah, about $15.
I can't remember, but they're a lot cheaper than Pulps, and they're on paper that'll last, you know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But they're keeping them alive.
Yes, Gerasol is doing a good job too. But most of theirs are popular publications, and most of theirs cost $35 each. But they're fantastic reproductions.
But when we were doing our reprints, they were just off the wall stories.
Yeah.
You know, we weren't doing the main characters because of the copyrights.
Well, yeah. Well, the ones in the public domain, Venom Detective,
yeah, those we did, but not the others.
Secret Agent X, yeah.
But we were stopped by Condé Nast, and you know, we weren't stopped by them, but we were leery of them.
Yeah.
We didn't do them because of them.
Right.
So, you know, nowadays they've got the permission to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even if you can't get permission to reprint some of the ones under copyright, it seems like there's just a ton that are in the public domain.
Oh yes,
now.
Yeah. And
some of the covers are too.
Back in the early days, the 60s and 70s, back in the ancient prehistoric days, when
in our young days,
yeah, when we didn't have so easy access to all these pulp reprints, what we were doing, and of course it'd be illegal today, Condé Nast had come after us, but collectors were photocopying copies of their Shadow or Spider or Operator 5 or G8 or whatever, and swapping with other collectors. Other collectors would photocopy their issues of Operator 5, G8, etc.
They were working to finish the collection.
Yeah, and they would swap each other with these photocopies. And some of them got smart and started photocopying extras and started selling them for $5 each.
Those with a little bit of entrepreneurial spirit.
But you know, for a while, they didn't know and they never said anything. But you know, for a while, that was the only way we could get some issues. The Shadow.
You couldn't find them.
The Spider and G8.
There wasn't a store that's just carrying pulps.
No,
we would find some. We were on leave one time. We came to Texas and we were on leave and we went to Dallas to visit brother. And Tommy's dad was in the hospital VA hospital at Dallas. And we went there to visit, and we took a afternoon and drove downtown Dallas. We had heard about this used bookstore.
We called them
down there, and we went down there to see what they had. And Tommy, I mistakenly let him go upstairs. They had all these pulps, $2 each.
Yeah.
Wow.
All kinds of them. I forget what titles they were, but he bought what we could afford at the time and said, I'm going to go back. you know. But the next time we got back, we must have been in the Twilight Zone because the next time we went back, they weren't there anymore.
Well, they were there, but
the store was there.
The store was there, but Pulp weren't. But you know, when we got there the first time, we walked in. We walked in the bottom. We didn't know about the upstairs, so we walked in the bottom, and it was a regular bookstore, but it had a science fiction pulp stacked all over the floors. I mean, you could walk over and you could find stacks of amazing or fantastic or planet stories. And when I called this guy, I asked him if he had pulps. He said, "Oh yeah, I got lots of them." And we walked in, I saw all these science fiction pulps. I said, "Well, you know, I'm looking for the hero stuff, Doc Savage, Shadows, stuff like that." He said, "Oh, I don't have any Shadow or Doc Savage. I've been cleaned out of those. But see, I've got some of the others upstairs." And so he unlocked the door and took us upstairs. And I'm telling you, upstairs was as big as downstairs. And it had 1940s comic books. And it had 1930s and 1940s pulps. Stacked all over the floors, all over that upstairs room. and I only had about $100 to spend. And he said everything is $2 each except first issues, and first issues are $4.
Oh wow!
I found about 50 Phantom detectives, and I found the one shadow that was covering it. So he was wrong. There were some shadows up there, and I found the first issue of the Ghost, and he charged me $4 for that one, but it was worth it. It was well worth it. And those $2 Phantoms were worth it. I enjoyed them.
Wow.
But you can't find stores like that anymore.
You have to have money when you go in.
Yeah, I mean, just from trying to find some around here, I go to a decent amount of flea markets and that on the weekends during the summer, and I think I found one single pulp magazine there.
Yeah.
They're just pretty scarce. I mean, I guess you could go on eBay and find them, and of course Pulp Fest and other pulp conventions probably have a ton of them.
But then you're going to pay.
Right.
You know,
yeah.
And when we started out, he could get them for $1 each at certain times, you know, for certain printers or certain collectors.
Books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some bookstores would still have them stuck back in a little cubby hole here and there, you know.
But they were more available when back then, I guess. But you had to pay the big dealers. You had to pay them a little bit of money for them. I think I had to complete my Secret Agent X set. I had to pay like $50 each for the last few issues. But other than that, I got the second issue for $2 a few years before that.
It averaged out.
Yeah.
Right.
But he was in at the right time. He got in at the right time when they were available, and you know, you could get them. Some dealers would sell them for like 10 for $60.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You know, 10 shadows for $60.
Yeah.
And he bought a lot of them that way.
Yeah. Another thing that I might add is the excuse me, I got a cough.
Oh, that's okay. Need to get a drink?
Yeah.
Okay.
The lesser known pulp characters like Secret Agent X and
G.A.
stuff like that. They didn't have a big price tag on them back in 1970. The bigger price tags were for the Spider and the Shadow and Doc Savage books.
And you could find those for hundreds of dollars, or depends on which issue, where you bought it from.
Let's see. Yeah.
But back then you could buy them for $6 or something like that, like we did.
Yeah.
$6 each, which wasn't really bad.
No.
Yeah.
But like I say, at certain times we'd get an ad in that would tell us that they had some that were way outpriced, in our opinion. Of course, now that was our opinion. We couldn't afford them, so we were living on military salary. So.
That's like me right now with a lot of these Weird Tales back issues.
Yeah.
That's just some of the ones I was looking at. It's like, wow. I mean, if there's like one story in there by one of the Lovecraft Circle, whew, that makes the price go up immediately.
Right. But that's because they're known so much more today. You see
the internet.
You see something by Lester Dent, and you're going to pay for it. It's going to cost, or Howard, or Lovecraft.
Yeah, and if there's a little Burroughs story in there, yeah.
It depends on where you buy it and who's selling it. A lot of times,
right?
We had this one time. We came in on leave and we went to a store in Wichita Falls, and she had this was about the time that Price Guide came out
for comic
books, and Tommy had a copy of it, and he had it in his hand. I think.
No, it's out in the car. A friend of ours told us when you go to Wichita Falls,
go to this one store.
Well,
where it was,
when you go to Wichita Falls, see if they have the first issue of Spider-Man. And he said, see if you can get it for me. And so that's what I was trying to get for him. And I asked this lady, I said, you got Spider-Man #1? And she did. Hey, that's a darn cough. But she didn't know if she wanted to sell it. And I told her, well, look, I've got a price guide. We can go by that. And you might give me a little discount because I'm showing you the price. And she looked at it. She said, ooh, it's $40. Oh, I think
I paid a nickel for it.
I think I better save it. I don't want to sell it. And that woman never did sell any of those old comic books she had because she kept thinking they're going to go up.
We went in about 10 years later and they were all still there.
Yeah, of course they did go up, but she never did sell them, so what good were they?
Yeah, I bet, well, they definitely went up now. So
yeah.
hopefully she got it on the uptake at some point.
I think she's gone now.
Oh yeah.
The store isn't there anymore.
She was old back then, so yeah. But that's trouble with price guides. And everyone finds a comic book that has 10 cents price on it. They, wow, this is an old comic book. It's got to be worth $1 million.
It's like those National Geographic. Right?
When we had our bookstore, people would come in and try and sell us National Geographics and
they wanted a mint
and Reader's Digest, and I'd have to tell them, I can't sell that stuff. I'd have to give it away. And they just thought, well, this is old. This is an old issue.
You ought to want this.
I said, don't help me a bit.
Yep, there's not a demand for it. Yeah.
All depends on what you're looking for.
Yeah.
But luckily I got all mine when the prices were still reasonable. And I'm, like I say, I'm only missing a few G8s and a few Lone Eagles and some of the Western hero pulps like the Texas Rangers, Real Kids, stuff like that. So I'm not,
He's not actively buying right
no,
now.
I'm not, really forced to go after the stuff. If I see a reprint from John Dennison or I buy a bunch of stuff from Anthony Tolan too, so I'm filling in some blanks.
Mike Chonko.
Yeah, I'm buying them through Mike Chonko. But I'm getting a lot of stuff of John Dennison and Anthony Tolan through Mike Chonko.
Cool.
And that way I'm filling in blanks, and I'm also upgrading some of those pulps that are falling apart. I'm getting the reprints or the reproductions.
Yeah, that's what I mainly buy now is reprints or or the ebooks.
Yeah,
if there are
that's
some.
all that's available anymore.
Yeah.
It's hard to find the original pulp in good condition
without paying
a small fortune.
Yeah. And heck, it's a good thing a lot of people. Yeah. It's a good thing a lot of people save some of these magazines.
Yeah.
Too, because heck, if those people didn't save them, there'd be no scans and no reprints.
Right.
And they're doing such a fantastic job on these reprints that I can't praise them enough, because I know what kind of work goes into it.
Yeah.
Just scanning alone is a job. Especially if you've got scanners like we had when we were doing it, they'd see the scanner would read a 5 as an S, or an S as a 5, and you'd have to go through it, character by character to find all these typos.
That was also another one of our problems with magazines. I bought a computer for me and set up in the bookstore, and Ginger had a computer in the house where she worked, and I would type on stories with the computer in the bookstore, and she typed on them on her computer at the house, and I would get mine done, and I would take them over to her computer, and they were different computers. And
different operating systems.
Different systems.
They weren't compatible a lot of times.
And what would happen is paragraphs would be moved. The format would be messed up. And so that was another one of the problems we faced when we were publishing the magazines.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys kind of got in at the time before everything kind of became standardized.
Technology had to grow a little bit.
Yeah, they didn't get everything ironed out yet, so it was so good to have a smooth transition from one computer to the other.
We drove Model A's.
But even now we've got the computer in this room, and we've got the HP over there.
No, that's a Dell XP.
Dell
and he's
XP.
got an HP Vista, and then we've got a Mac.
And
none of them are compatible.
I can't type a story on the Mac and then take it to my Vista. It's just a different system.
Yeah.
What it is he has to save it a certain way before he can open it in there.
Yeah,
right.
But he doesn't think to do that.
Yeah, I have called her and said, "Honey, come here and fix this for me." So, like I say, I still haven't learned the computer very well.
In other words, we take 10 steps instead of 2.
Yeah.
You guys get to the finish, though. That's what counts.
Well, he still types up his stories. You know, he writes fiction stories, novels, and he'll bring them in to me to edit, and I'll edit them on one of the computers in here, and he'll take it back in there to his, and it won't open. You know, it's just a little quirk.
Yeah, I said, what'd you do to it?
Well, talk about your fiction writing. Recently I read one of your Black Ghost stories and really enjoyed it.
Did you get it off Kindle?
Yeah. Yep, it was the first story in the Guns of the Black Ghost.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that.
Yeah,
that's his creation.
Yeah, I've got quite a few Black Ghost stories. The last one was in Pulp Echoes called Carnival of Death, which was a lot better, I think, than those early Black Ghost stories.
He's a modern day pulp hero, but he's kind of done in the classic pulp hero style.
Yeah, the Black Ghost was my tribute to Walter Gibson's Shadow. I knew I'd never write a Shadow novel or a Shadow story.
Or even come close.
Yeah, so I created my own character that I could write. But I used to say I was born to write the Shadow, but I'll never be able to write a Shadow story.
Well, this guy's pretty cool himself. I mean, I know I really enjoyed the first story with
Yeah, did you read the Black Shadow in Echoes 30?
No, I did not. I was actually just going to ask you about that, if there was any particular reading order, if I missed any.
No, actually the Doris Noel series, there were 11 stories of Doris Noel, but the Black Shadow that's in this Doris Noel story is a creation of my own. And there was really no finality to the Doris Noel stories. And like I say, there were 11, and I figured, well, there should have been 12 stories of Doris Noel. So I wanted to write the 12th story to end the Doris Noel series. So I wrote that one. I created the Black Shadow to put in with the story. I think you'll like the Black Shadow.
Okay, cool.
Give it a try.
Will do. And I see images for another series that it looks like done in the vein of Edgar Rice Burroughs here, called Jur. Am I pronouncing that right?
Yes, Jur. That was I created that series when I was really deep in Edgar Rice Burroughs stories.
Back in 1970.
I wrote 2 stories back in 70 in the Jur series, and they didn't ever go anywhere. And when I met James Reisner, James told me, you ought to change this and change that, and I think it'd go somewhere. So I did what James told me, in 2002. I submitted the first story to MBI, and they grabbed it up. So James was right. When I first wrote the stories, my main character was a Green Beret, an Army Green Beret that was just out of Vietnam. And James told me, well, you need to get rid of the Green Beret and start the story back at the crash of Wall Street in 1929, 1930, and see if that won't read a little bit better. So that's what we did. So I ditched the Green Beret and created a different character. And then I went ahead. I've got 6 Juror novels now that's out. It's probably my last one. I doubt if I'll write any more Juror stories.
And 2 of these are on Kindle.
Well, the 4 are on Kindle. 2 are
with NTD.
With NTD, and the other 4 we published. Or 2 of them we published. Yeah, 2 of them we published under Fading Shadows imprint, and MBI published 3. So anyway, it's a big mess, but they're all out there. I've got paperbacks of all 6.
Cool. Yeah, and I see them all here on Brinkster.
Yeah,
you guys,
Brinkster.
Yeah, and I'll definitely have all these links in the show notes too.
Yeah.
He's also written several other news stories featuring original Pulp.
Oh yeah,
as well as developed his own.
Oh yeah. I enjoyed a lot of the original Pulp characters. The Cobra, the Masked Detective, Secret Agent X, old Crimson Clown. There were just so many in the Pulp, in the Pulps, and I enjoyed them, and I wanted to write some of the stories, and I did.
And these are some of those characters that were in the back of the issues. Of
they didn't have their own.
Magazine.
Okay.
So what have we forgotten? I think we just threw out your little.
Oh no, that works.
In order, I don't think.
that works for me. I just wanted to. I also wanted to say that you're active with Altus Press doing introductions for collections on some of the classic Pulp characters as well.
Yes, Matt Mooring asked me to do a lot of the introductions. Black Bat and Masked Detective, I think, and several others that I've done. And I also wrote the companions, Phantom Detective Companion, Black Bat Companion, G-Man Companion with Dan Fowler, and Secret Agent X, which Will Murray helped me with. And I don't know.
He's just never does anything.
No. She puts me in a room by myself, and she says, "Write and leave me alone."
We've been married 53 years.
Oh wow!
I can tell him anything I want to.
Yep.
Tom's also contributed to a Halloween anthology.
Yeah.
And I collected and edited 4 issues of Tales of Masks and Mayhem, with stories by us and some of our writers from the fiction magazines. And Tom has had several short story collections from Altus Press and NTD as well as our own Fading Shadows imprint. So we stay busy.
Yeah, and I just saw that a little while ago you guys put out a book called New Pulp Heroes.
Yes. That's our newest issue, and we really want to push it. It's out in paperback from us,
and in Kindle,
and we've got it in Kindle now. So if anyone wants to order that, we've got it out. It's essays of new Pulp characters that are being printed today. We didn't get all of them,
no,
but we printed what we had at the time, We're
Right.
still collecting them. So, you know, if you have somebody that you want listed in the next one, if we ever get to a next one, send it to us and we'll stick it in there. But we have copies of the issue now in paperback, and it's only available through us.
Cool. That's a nice. That's a nice cover too.
Yeah, the paperback is only available through us, though.
Yeah.
And the Kindle version is up. If someone wants to get it that way.
There's two stories, one by Ginger and one by me in the issue. The story by Ginger is Mr. Minus.
And this is taken after Captain Zero of the Pulps. There was only 3 issues of his that was written by G.T. Fleming Roberts. And I read them years ago. And when we were doing fiction magazines, I came up with this character of Mr. Minus. So it's taken after that.
Cool. And Captain Zero, was he the guy that could go invisible?
Yes, he went invisible at night from midnight to dawn. And my character is the same way. He turned invisible at midnight and stayed that way until dawn.
Cool.
And it makes some interesting situations.
Oh, okay.
He would be smoking a cigarette, and all you could see was the smoke. Or he would wear contact lenses, and all you could see was the glint of his eye, if the light hit it just right.
Oh.
So, if he wanted to be invisible, though, he had to wear specific clothes, you know, that wouldn't be affected by this malady, or none at all.
Huh.
So if he started to become visible again at dawn, and he didn't have the right kind of clothes on, you know, no, I've got that backwards. If he started to go invisible at midnight, and he didn't have the right kind of clothes on, all you'd see was his clothes walking down the street.
Okay. And if he didn't have any on,
you couldn't see.
Oh, okay.
If he had nylon or animal fiber clothes, would turn invisible. Cotton, any kind of animal fiber, would turn invisible. But if it was a synthetic like nylon, it wouldn't.
Oh.
They would continue walking down the street. He had to have leather shoes. He had to have cotton clothing, even underwear, everything. Even the first night it happened, he sat in front of a mirror and watched his brain disappear.
Ooh.
And that's one of the come-ons in the story.
Wow.
But I thought it was interesting anyway.
Yeah.
But that story is in the back of the issue. And what was yours?
The Mind Master.
The Mind Master was his.
Cool. And who's he done in the vein of?
Well, it's a modern day or contemporary character, but he's kinda like the Shadow, but he isn't the Shadow. He uses his mind to project images instead of he doesn't really carry guns or shoot people or anything like that, but he has a team of agents who are one was an ex-boxer, one is a karate expert, and they do the killing if it's necessary. So there is some fights and some death in the story, but not by the mind master. He just uses his mind to, to send out images to, frighten people or whatever. But it's a contemporary or modern day story. Takes place in modern days.
Cool. Yeah, I'll definitely check that out. Like I said, I was really impressed with the Black Ghost stories. The Black Ghost stories that I've been reading, I really like those, and they're in the modern day, but it feels like a classic pulp story. With
yeah, he's pretty good. He, like I say, he's my answer to the Shadow. My tribute to Walter Gibson and the Shadow.
Cool.
And the Black Shadow, I think you'll find interesting too.
Okay, yeah, I'll have to check that out as well.
And there's two other pulp reprints in Echoes 30. One is the Red Sword, which is a fairly interesting character that very few people have heard of. And the other one is a reprint of the Green Ghost, the Johnston McCauley Green Ghost. Green Ghost.
Okay. And the Red Sword, is he another hero pulp?
Yeah, he's a British counterpart to America's The Eagle. The pulp character, The Eagle, was a spy for G2. And there were about 5 or 6 stories published in our pulps that featured the Eagle. Well, this character is also published in our pulps, but he is a British secret agent in the same style as the Eagle. And you'll probably find it interesting too. He's a pretty cool character.
Okay.
He uses a sword, and that's why he's called a Red Sword.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I can't remember. I don't think I've seen too many of the hero pulp guys use a sword. That would be pretty cool.
Operator 5, of course, Ham Brooks, and
the Spider.
The Spider used it every once in a while. But, yeah. There's some interesting characters in the pulps. A lot of them are not very well known.
One guy I keep hearing about, Rick Croxton, he seems to like him a lot, and I downloaded a couple issues with him in it. Is the Skull Killer?
Oh yeah.
I guess he appeared in the Scorpion and the Octopus magazines. I'm curious to see what he's all about.
Very interesting. Well, there's article on that character in Pulp in Echoes 30.
Nice.
So you can read about it there.
Cool. Yeah, and just as an aside here, I ran across your name in a fanzine. It's I found an old scan of it's a torrent of all these pulp magazines, and in there is a fanzine. It's a scan of an issue called Doc Savage Club Reader.
Yes.
And I saw you did a couple articles in here. One on Jimmy Holm, Supernatural Detective versus Dr. Death.
Right.
And you also collaborated with Al Tonic on an article about Uncle.
Yeah. Man from Uncle.
Were you guys big fans of that show?
Oh, yes. I've got all the paperbacks and the magazines of the Uncle series. Yeah.
Cool. I haven't seen that, but I've heard a lot of good things about it, and Well, David McCullum's in it. I watch him a lot now on NCIS as Ducky.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a good series. There were a lot of fantastic television series back then. I Spy, Men from Uncle, Mission Impossible.
The Girl from Uncle.
Girl from Uncle, yeah. The Prisoner.
Yeah, The Prisoner. What was that other spy series?
There were a lot of them.
My mind went blank.
Yeah, there were a lot. Get Smart. Oh, that was the spy. Yeah.
That was a comedy.
Yeah.
I've been watching a lot of episodes. Tales of the Gold Monkey.
Oh yeah.
I really like that one.
Yeah, I think I've got all of those.
I've been kind of taking my time on them because I know sooner or later I'm going to run out of them.
Yeah.
And I don't want it to end.
Yeah.
And we've got the Indiana Jones series and the Jurassic Park series. Some of the shows we get all of them. In the Men in Black, got all those.
Cool.
Yeah, we don't have television anymore. We turned off our television except for watching tapes and DVDs. And we've got a lot of DVDs and VHS tapes of the old TV series and movies. Got a lot of black and white movies.
He's got a lot of the old serials.
I've got about 100 of the old serials. The Magic Marvel.
Those were 15-minute chapters that were shown at the theater.
Yeah.
Every week they show 15 minutes of a certain character, like what is it, Cody?
Commando
Cody.
And
15 minutes of it, and then there'd be a cliffhanger. You'd have to go back the next week to see what happened.
Cool.
And he's got a whole bunch of those on VHS.
Wow.
And including the Shadow,
the Spider
serial, the Spider serial,
Captain Marvel,
Superman serial.
Yeah.
All of those old idiot shows.
I gave you one link to the Gym Theater. That's where I write about all this stuff.
Oh, cool.
Serials, comic books, and stuff like that.
Nice.
That's when I was growing up, going to the movies.
Paying 9 cents for a movie.
Yeah, seeing double feature, Western or Bowery Boys or Jungle. Yeah.
Nice.
The good old days.
Yeah. Like when I saw that they had the Fleischer Brothers Superman cartoons. Yeah. Man, those still hold up today. They're awesome.
He's got a issue of the Superman serial, and he was watching it one day, and Superman take off and fly, and I said, "Honey, that's a cartoon character." And he said, "No, that's Superman." I said, "No, that's cartoon. When he starts flying, it's a cartoon."
She remembers things differently now. But
it is.
Yeah. When I was 8 years old, first time I saw the Superman serial, and us kids didn't notice that it turned into a cartoon. Right. We saw Superman flying.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
But I've watched that serial, I guess, 12 times since then. It may not be the best serial that was ever made, but still one of my favorite because it had such an impact on me when I was 8 years old.
Oh, cool. You guys were saying you like old time radio as well.
Yes.
I listen to the Superman radio show,
Yeah.
I really like that one.
There was Tarzan radio show.
This friend of ours that we sent you the link to the internet old time radio show. He has all of these shows listed that he streams through the internet at all times. You know, there's something always on.
What? Yeah.
He set it up himself, and he had all these CDs of all these shows, and he just popped them in. And he runs the internet on it.
Yeah, it looks like a really cool station to listen to.
Yeah,
there's all kinds of programs.
So we've heard all the programs.
We've heard all the programs, and all we need to do is listen to them again.
Yeah.
They're all repeats to us, but we listen to them over and over again.
Yeah, I gotta go get it.
Okay.
I'll try to think of something to say.
Yeah,
all right.
You did it talking.
Okay.
But
well, Ginger, I don't want to keep you guys from your radio program, but you mentioned one story you wrote for the new Pulp Heroes book. Any other fiction that you'd like to mention?
Well, just his from Altus Press and MTV and the Jer series.
Cowboy from Texas.
Well, yeah, I wrote The Cowboy from Texas and Suicide That Wasn't. It's up on Kindle. They're not in print right now, but they are up on Kindle, and they can be downloaded. I'm just an amateur writer. Mostly what I do is edit and, do things like that. So Tommy's got the talent as far as writing is concerned.
Let's see. Yeah, I was just wondering if you dabbled in it yourself.
Oh, I did a few things for our fiction magazines off and on, but mostly they were Mr. Minus stories, and just little short things, and little weird stories.
Okay.
Like going home to Grandma's house and something happens. It's just little pastiches. They're just, they weren't really pulp stories. They were just fillers.
Yeah, well, that's what the back of pulp magazines were. They were just fillers.
Yeah, mine weren't anything great. I just put some words together from that.
Cool.
But the Mr. Midas stories I was kind of proud of, and the Cowboy from Texas.
Yeah, I've got to say something about that too. She no sooner put the Cowboy from Texas on Kindle than it started selling. I think she's outsold me already.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to start writing westerns.
Yeah.
That's because westerns aren't out there anymore. It's not because of my story or me writing it. It's just it's a western title.
What's that one? Is that a contemporary western, or is it set in the Old West?
No, it's not. It's set back in the 1800s.
Yeah.
It's back in the 1800s, and it's a period piece. Just a western character.
And it's short story.
And it's a short story, yeah.
If you had to give a little teaser about it, how would you describe it?
It's my mom calls me Cat. That's the first line. But he lives in a cave. He has his own horse, and he feeds the people on the stage
He's kind of hiding out, isn't he?
Yeah, kind of hiding out, not wanting to be known. And just wants to be off by himself.
Didn't he supposedly kill somebody in a gunfight? So,
Yeah.
And that's why
And he doesn't want to be known as any faster than the other guy. So he doesn't want people to come after him.
Oh, he doesn't want the reputation that comes with it. I got you.
But it's just a real short mystery.
Cool.
And the suicide that wasn't is a detective and his female partner. They try to find the killer of a pulp fanzine publisher.
Oh.
Someone killed me, I guess.
Without your name. Yeah.
That sounds pretty cool.
But I just fiddle around with writing. I don't profess to do a good job. So the writing is up to Tom. And I'll push his writing any day.
Excellent.
And I'm not much of a writer. I just have a good imagination.
Well, between the two of us, we put it together.
You're a good team, that's for sure.
He has a tendency to put the wrong words in, like he'll put the bowl of a tree.
Yeah.
BOWL.
But see, I'm thinking of a bowl of soup when I write the bowl of a tree, and I write BOWL instead of BOLE.
I had to catch that thing.
There you go.
And there's been times when I didn't. It winds up in print.
Yeah, it's so easy to, type the wrong word.
Yeah, even with computers today, it doesn't always catch, it doesn't catch your grammar mistakes. It just catches your spelling mistakes.
Yeah, right.
It's some grammar, but not all of it.
Yeah.
Yep, and it's tough to get everything, even if you have multiple people reading it. Yeah.
And I claim to be Tommy's editor on a lot of his stories, but he also has professional editors that find a lot more than I did. So thank goodness there are professional editors out there.
Yep. Yeah, some people really have an eye for it.
Yeah, I'm just a GED person. I didn't graduate high school.
Yeah, my publisher did TD doesn't like verbs. And I use a lot of verbs and adjectives and adverbs.
She doesn't like LY.
Yeah, you put an LY in the story and she's going to take it out.
That's slow.
Yeah. I'll put in there the gunfighter turned quickly and she'll take it out. The gunfighter turned. I wanted it to turn quickly,
the gunfighter only turned, and it'll come out the gunfighter own turned.
Yeah, get rid of that only.
Because add and remove ly.
Yeah.
You don't like LY. You'll get rid of all of them.
Replace all of them. There's also good editors out there that go through word by word by word.
Yeah, yeah.
And those are few and far between these days with the computers.
Yeah,
but they still good.
Yeah, I keep telling my editors I write pulp fiction. I don't write modern day fiction. They don't understand that stuff.
No.
Right.
Well, there's so many people that don't really know what pulp means.
Well,
yeah.
Yeah,
it's tough to, Pulp Fiction, the movie, I think that has a lot to do with it too. Everyone kind of associates it with like hard-boiled crime, and it's more than that. Yeah. Well,
it had nothing to do with pulps.
Yeah, evidently I heard he wanted to call it Black Mask.
Yes, that's what I heard too.
And that didn't go through, so he just called it Pulp Fiction, and now a lot of people think Pulp Fiction's all about crime, and
No, it's not.
yeah.
Some of them actually fly planes and catch crooks without finding a bullet.
Yep. There's there's so many genres in there. Weird fiction, science fiction, the hero pulps, detective.
There's romance.
The romance, yeah. I read my first romance story a few weeks back for Valentine's Day. It was pretty good.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them that are.
Yeah, you had that, can't think the title of it now.
Oh yeah, the Thrill Chaser, I think. Something like that. Yeah. And a lot of people think that Burroughs, a lot of his stuff, if you really boil it down to, it's action and adventure, but there's a romance in a lot of those.
Yeah, it's a lot of romance.
Yeah.
Burroughs.
Well,
but he had also adventure, action, suspense. He had a good imagination. He could come up with character names and languages, and an elephant is a tantor.
Right. And the Mangani and the Bulgani and
yeah. And who would think of some place called Pellucidar?
Yeah. Right.
He just had an imagination that wouldn't quit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And every one of his stories had some romance to it,
Yeah.
The two characters got involved and fell in love, and their trials and tribulations through the story.
Well, early science fiction was really called Underworld Romances. And that's what Burroughs was writing, Underworld Romances. And even his Tarzan.
And
romance.
Well, Tarzan went to Mars,
Well, Burroughs didn't write that.
Oh, yeah.
But I really enjoy his writing still. I like how he uses it kind of goes back and forth. He'll do one chapter from one person's point of view.
He does that in his life.
Yeah.
Especially in his Joe series.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that really makes for some suspense.
Yeah.
He ends the second chapter with, "She screamed."
Oh, nice.
Then you have to come back and see why.
Then you got to read it. Then it's like, oh, wonder why. And then there's a chapter from this person's point of view, and then you go back, pick up from there, huh?
And the character.
Cool. Yeah, I got used to Burroughs doing that, and I got used to Burroughs' main character. It seemed like he always came across somebody that could help him.
Yeah.
Like a key person in whatever tribe area that was in. He either met the prince or he met the king or somebody.
Yeah. Or could be introduced to him.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. But yeah, I've read I haven't read all the Martian ones. I read the first 5. I read the first 3 Tarzans and the first couple Pellucidar. That's what I hear. And
I haven't read a bad Burroughs, and I've read every one of them.
A lot of them were, just like each other.
Yeah, they were
similar plots. The outlines were very similar. But Burroughs had an imagination, and that's what brought the readers back for more.
He could come up with names and characters and other people, other tribes or whatever, like you wouldn't believe. He just,
Well, Burroughs was also good at promotion, and he took his Tarzan stories and he really promoted them.
He sold T-shirts and caps and all this other sort of stuff.
He sold them to movies. He sold them to cereals. Yeah.
He was a good representative for himself.
Yeah, and I heard he bought that land in California, where Tarzana is now.
Yeah.
And I heard by the time he was done selling all the lots, he did have a place for himself there to live.
Yeah. He was really something else.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. There's one book one series I have my eye on reading is The Mucker by him, because that sounds so different from all the other ones.
It's kind of off the wall.
Yeah, but it's still the same plot and everything. Of course, the girl and he's not really what he seems, and yeah.
Cool.
But if you like Burroughs, you'll like it.
Oh, yeah, sweet. I'm definitely gonna try reading that one of these days, and of course finishing off the Barsoom series and the Tarzan ones as well.
Yeah. It took me a while to get off of Tarzan and Mars series, even to go to the Venus series and the Pellucidar series. But once I did, I enjoyed all of them.
Oh yeah, I think Pellucidar was one of my favorites. I enjoyed the Pellucidar series.
I used to, off of LibriVox, I downloaded the audiobooks. That's how I guess, quote, read all of them. That was by listening to them. And I just had a job at night. I was working as a file clerk, and I just put my iPod in my ears and I listened to those pretty much all night. And I got through a lot of them that way. But that's like, I really didn't have to think too much while doing it, so I could, absorb the story.
Right.
I haven't been able to do that for a while, because I got another job where I actually had to think about stuff. And I could just basically read just on my lunch breaks when I got that one.
Yeah.
But there's just a lot of good stuff out there. Reprints and new pulp, and there's a lot of good stuff out there to read now.
We've been so lucky to be around during the time that we have to be able to find all the stuff that we've got
and read
the books that we've got. He's got 2 rooms just about full, and then we've got 2 storage sheds outside full of books. And he's read all of them.
Wow.
For the most part.
I was a voracious reader from age 10. Well, actually, I discovered comic books at age 7. And I loved reading comic books. And then I was given a box of classics. Tom Sawyer, White Fang, things like Heidi and novels like that. And I read all those, and I just loved reading. And then I got into science fiction. I thought there was nothing better. Wow, you can go to other worlds. You can teleport. You can read minds. Science fiction was so wonderful. And I just kept reading. I couldn't quit reading. And so as a young boy just turning to teenage years, I had a book in my head every day.
The escapism was what we all looked for.
Yeah, I was always reading. And then I found hardball detectives like Mickey Spillane and the rest. And then later I found Pulps. Found Burroughs and Conan and Robert E. Howard and all those.
But we've been so fortunate that we've been able to afford to live that way.
Oh,
too.
yeah.
A lot of people have trouble putting food on the table.
Oh, yeah.
And we never had that problem. Although it came close. But we were very fortunate.
Oh, yes. We've been fortunate. Sure have.
Oh, that's great. Well, I don't
And I
want.
put up with him for 53 years.
And being in Pulp fandom, I think, has really been a blessing to us.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, I don't want to keep you guys on much longer. I know you guys got some plans to do some old time radio listening tonight.
Yeah.
But
Listen to the lineup.
And I'm going to try to get rid of this cough. I don't know where it came from.
it came out of nowhere, but that's yeah, that's all right. I really enjoy. But yeah, I really enjoyed talking to you guys. Anything else you'd like to mention?
Well, just tell everybody to buy New Pulp Heroes, the essays on New Pulp, and go to my website and Kindle and Amazon and buy some of those books. Go to Altus Press. Buy everything, yeah.
Yep. They'll be in all the links. I'll put them in the show notes.
But we really enjoyed this. Did we answer everything you wanted to ask us?
Oh yeah. Yep. I really enjoyed talking to you guys, and it was great hearing you guys talk about the early days of Pulp fandom.
Yeah.
We just wanted to continue. Pulp fandom is something that I think, anyway, is a great way to get acquainted with people.
Friendships.
And
friendships.
find great friendships in it.
Yeah.
We have known so many people through the years that I couldn't begin to name all of them.
Yeah.
But if any of them are listening, hello!
Yeah. And for the New Pulp groups, we wanna say, keep it up.
Keep going.
Keep going.
And Art's doing a great job with Sunco.
Yeah, Art's doing a real good job with Sunco. Eventually all us old timers gonna be gone, and we're gonna have some new blood and new stories, and so you new Pulp writers, y'all keep it up and keep those stories coming, and keep Pulp fandom.
Find you a Dark Savage or a good old Shadow or a Spider.
Yeah.
And go ahead and start writing.
Yep.
Great.
We really enjoyed this.
Yeah, we really enjoyed it, Jason.
Oh.
I'm
sorry I had to cough all through it.
Oh, no.
That you're online.
Oh, no problem.
You're doing a good service.
We enjoy your podcast and Rick's podcast.
And thank you.
Yeah.
That means a lot coming from you two. I appreciate that.
We have
new technology to us.
We have something to listen to every week.
Oh, great.
And it's a pleasure, believe me.
Yes.
Thanks. Well, already, I guess we'll close up here.
Okay.
For being on.
Oh, thank you guys for coming on. It was a pleasure. And this is Jason Aiken with
Tom
and Ginger.
And we'd like to thank you for listening to Pulp Crazy tonight. And hope you have a great rest of the week. Take care.
And goodbye.
Bye.